Hello and welcome back to my channel. So I've got 8 books here from the library. I only have them for a limited time. I'm going to be tier ranking the books after I read a chapter of them. I'm going to be giving you the rundown of what I like about the chapters or don't like about the chapter. So the first book I have here is The Hunting Party. Chapter 1 opens up with a bang. We know that there's been someone who was around for this trip who went missing for a while. Someone finally finds them, but they're dead. That's all we know. It's fast-paced. I really like the writing style of this one. It is going to have alternating POVs written in first person, which I think could be a lot of fun, or it could get very confusing if the author doesn't do a good job of distinguishing the characters' voices. So we'll see how it's going to go. But the first character POV that we got in here was a girl named Heather. And that's my name. So we're going to stick it up here for now. I got bored by page 5 of The Hunting Party, so we're just going to go ahead and DNF this one. Then the next book I have is The Island of Missing Trees. And also just to note that all of these books have some sort of either magical realism or spooky element to them, so they're perfect for Halloween. Alright. So this book here is about a girl who doesn't really know much about her family history. Her mom died a year and 8 months ago to the day, and now she is going to be off for Christmas break, and her teacher has assigned her to interview one of her grandparents or something, and she's also supposed to find a family heirloom and connect historical facts to the interview that she has with the relative, but her family's always been hush-hush about where they come from. One of them has Greek roots and the other one has Turkish roots, and it seems like there may be where in the past there was a warring section between the two. So I think it could be that we're going to get glimpses into the past with her parents. Maybe they're the ones that kind of cross lines to get to know each other based off of the blurb, but I'm not really sure. Is she going to go to this island where her parents were from? I don't know what's going to happen. I do like the writing style so far. There are some weird things as well where the character thinks about certain sexual things, and she's 16, and I'm just like, ugh. Why are you thinking about your teacher going home and masturbating and hooking up with random men? That's just so weird to me. I never did that as a 16-year-old. I don't know if that's a normal thing teenagers do, but it was just really jarring because I wasn't expecting it, and I was like, what is this? Why are you thinking about that? It's so creepy. But anyway, and then she talks about something made her think of her parents having sex. And I'm like, why are you talking about this stuff? But anyway, I'm going to put that here just because the sexual stuff is no. By the way, I'm ace, so most mentions of sexual stuff is gross. If there isn't some sort of romantic background facilitating it. If that makes sense. I can definitely go read me a steamy book because there is some emotional substance behind it. So I'm ace, but I'm also kind of dimmy. I don't understand how it's possible for people to not have emotions behind it because that's not me. But I get that other people, it is just sexual stuff for them. But yeah, to me, I'm just what? Anyway. The next one is The 7-Year Witch. I read the first chapter of this, but I'm telling you, I didn't really understand what was going on. I was kind of getting a bit lost in it. And all we really know is that the one girl, I believe she has some psychic powers. And she also can hear books' thoughts, which is kind of cool as a reader. She literally, the books think, and she hears what the books think. They're mad if they don't get read often. And there's an architect who comes in, and she's a librarian, and they're at this, diner or something. And so she was talking to the person that was the owner of the diner about the architect coming in to develop something and thinking that it was weird that he was developing it on like haunted ground. So I don't know if I'm going to like this one or not, which is why I'm going to be putting it over here at the bottom for now. It's a talking cat, and I'm getting slightly more interested. So I'm going to move it to this spot. Then we have Cackle. So this one we find out that it is her birthday. One of her friends in town decides to take her to go see a psychic, and the psychic basically says that she's got like some darkness surrounding her and that she can't give her a read. But of course she still takes her money. So she and the friend are like, well, this sucks. So they go to a pizza place or whatever, and then they come back. You find out as well that she's kind of sad because she's 30 and she feels like a spinster because the person that she thought she was going to wind up married to told her that he thinks that they're really just friends, because even though they have sex, it feels like a roommate relationship and it doesn't feel like they're in love with each other anymore. And she wanted to get married to him. So they're still living together and they rotate the bed. So one of them gets the bed and one of them gets a cot in the living room. And I believe she's just taken a job somewhere else. So she's going to be moving out and pursuing that new career. It's just really sad. It was so sad. I'm just like, oh man. And I could feel that too as like a 32-year-old. Like, I've been with my husband since I was in high school. So I would have a very difficult time imagining just like going out as a single person at this age. It would just feel, it would feel so weird because most people are already married and having kids. So to not even be dating anybody would make you feel a little off. And she's not like her other friend that's 27 years old, who's like, 30 is not old. 30 is supposed to be like the best time of your life because you figured out who you are. She's like, but I haven't figured out who I am yet. So how is it supposed to be the best time of my life? And the other friend is, she likes going out and partying and socializing and like kissing random dudes on the dance floor. Whereas this one is just, she's been so used to coming home to the same person every night that she doesn't know how to like let go and be like the wild 20-something. So yeah, I really like this. I like the emotional appeal, and I know that there's going to be something spooky that comes, and I'm really excited for it. Then we've got The Fervor. So, this one, the writing style, as far as the composition of the words, was easy enough to read, but some of the plot elements I found very confusing. There are people burning alive in this story, but then it's also like they're missed. So I'm like, what's going on? Are these people actually here, or are you just picturing these people? And it talks about the ground opening up and becomes like a volcano. And I just don't know what's actually happening in this book. It's very confusing. I don't know what's happening in this book. But I know that it does, it is going to get into like the internment camp for Japanese people during World War II. So I'm interested in seeing how that goes with like the horror elements that are going to be in here. So I don't know. They're both confusing, but I feel like I have more hope for this one. This one's dialogue was also a little weird. So they're kind of equal in my opinion right now, but we're just going to stick it over there. So many characters being mentioned that it's a little hard to keep up with everybody. I also thought that this was a YA book, but it is not a YA book. This is definitely an adult book. It's following a woman named Miko, who is a mother to a daughter, and the daughter is the one that's like seeing what she calls these demons, and she says that the demons told her that the trucks that are coming in have something bad in it, and that they're going to be trapped, even though the rules on internment have ended. So as long as the people who are inside the camps can be sponsored by someone who lives outside of the camps, then they can leave. They're free to go. So they've actually been at this internment camp for 2 years already. It also talks about a lot of the people are not wanting to leave the camp because they feel like they're safer inside of it rather than outside of it, because of the way that the American people have been taught to hate the Japanese people who were put in the internment camps. Not only that, but when people left, they may have had a house and a bunch of items, and their neighbors sold off all of their possessions, and their houses have been resold. So they're like literally, it's just like everything has been ripped away from them while they've been gone. And the unique situation for the character Miko is that she is married to a white man who is like an aviator for the army. So she's heard stories of other army wives. They have these nice houses with their kids and like safe neighborhoods on base, and she's stuck at this internment camp. Not only that, but she cannot have his family sponsor her because when he left home at 18 years old, he cut off all ties with them. So she doesn't have anyone coming to her rescue anytime soon, and now her daughter's telling her that these demons are telling her some bad stuff's about to go down. She gets curious, so she goes and she sneaks into the area where they've brought these trucks, and she sees that there is something that's been padlocked. She also finds crates of gas mask and other items that make her wonder if maybe her daughter is onto something. And also the character who was initially seeing stuff seems like it was maybe possibly her father that was seeing it, because the opening chapter is when Miko is a young child. So very weird stuff happening, lots of stuff that doesn't make sense, characters who I don't really know who they are, but chapter 2 made a lot of sense and definitely makes me interested in finding out more about like the aftermath of this, and also how the horror elements are going to come into play with these demon creatures that are possibly being brought into the camp. Also, people are being infected with stuff, and they're not being quarantined, so it keeps spreading throughout the camp. No one's died from the virus that they've all contracted, but they're like puking and just, nasty cold type stuff. So super interesting and timely. But yeah, so based off of chapter 2 alone, I am going to move it up the ranks, and I'm going to put it here as number 3, because now it has the whole like thriller aspect of life or death thing, the survival thing there, and also it has like the knowledge-based stuff that makes me interested, like learning more about internment camps, even though it is going to have this horror element that's not like real, but is going to be entertaining. So that's why it's going to move up to number 3. But it is getting late and I need to go to bed because tomorrow I have an eye doctor appointment because I've been seeing spots for like a week. I have a lazy eye today. Then we've got The Conjure Women. Don't really know too much about this one so far. I do know that part of it is set during the time of slavery and part of it is right after slavery is abolished. And the main character is 20 years old and she is a midwife, so she delivers a bunch of babies. And she still lives on the plantation where she was previously a slave, because that's where she gets her work to do all the midwifing. She's just used to being there and people coming to her. So she winds up delivering this woman who's around the same age as her, possibly a little bit younger. She winds up delivering this woman's child, which happens to be white, which just makes her think about slavery and like how that came to be. And the woman who gave birth to the white child does not want to touch him. So I am going to put that one. See, it does, like, this is YA, but this one, it has like a literary feel, and I haven't really got to know enough about it. So I feel like these are kind of tied. like not my favorites yet. I'm not really far enough into them. So, like, I don't really know anything about this one, whereas I do know a little bit more about this one. So I'm gonna put them there, but again, I kind of see them as equal. I did read chapter 2 of that book, and it does get a little confusing because what's happening is we're seeing some of the book whenever the main character was in slavery, like her mom was a slave, and we're also seeing her as an adult when slavery has been abolished, but she's still living in the same place. So when she's younger, which is kind of what we see in chapter 2, we figure out that her mother is what you call the conjure woman. So anytime bad stuff starts happening to the white plantation owners, they come to her and pay her money to like get the hex taken off of them, because they also know that she like puts hexes on people and she uses voodoo dolls and stuff like that. And so when people who are in slavery save up money or find money, they bring it to her to like do these different things. There's also a woman that has vitiglio. I think I might be saying that wrong. Vitiligo. One of those two. It's a skin condition. I think Michael Jackson had it. It's where certain parts of your body will like lack melanin. So even though you're a black person, you'll have white spots. And those tend to increase. So with this woman, hers was started off where it was like her inner thighs. So you couldn't really see it when she was dressed. And she was able to become a house slave. But then when it started to spread to her hands, the woman of the house thought that she was contagious somehow, and that that she was going to like be contaminated if this woman touched her food. So now she's like, I can't go back to being a regular slave like I wanted to be in the house. And now this woman is so scared of me that I can't do that anyway. They're going to sell me off at the next auction. And she has I think she has a child, and she also has a husband there, so she doesn't want to leave them. So she tells her husband that she wants to escape, but he doesn't want to go with her because there are slave catchers out, and you can get some severe punishments for doing that. So she goes to the conjure woman and she asks for help, and the conjure woman like tells her to go at night and follow the river. So she does, but she winds up getting caught the next day, brought back, and then given 10 lashes. And I think the person who inflicts the lashes is another one of the slaves that like knows her. It might even be her husband. And so the slaver was like watching from an upstairs window and is like, if I don't see blood, I'm gonna make you do it again. So like he had to do it really hard. And then so the conjure woman, which is the main character's like mother, tells her, okay, this time I want you to follow the silver pieces. So I guess there's things that she's able to do and you can't really tell if they're magical or not, or if she has like a network of other people. Not really sure, but she says like, go to the river. This time you will find silver pieces. Follow the path of silver to the north where you can be free. Because again, during this part, it's going back in the past when slavery had not been abolished yet. So the woman leaves by the end of chapter 2 after having been beaten. And that's really all you know about that. And then, of course, the main character as a child kind of trying to figure out if her mother actually has some sort of like witchy powers, or if she just says certain things to get money. But yeah, it's really interesting. I'm getting used to like the more what I call literary style. It's very, it's not like fast-paced, breakneck pace writing style that I prefer, but it is like the typical adult fiction with a little bit of a slowness to it. But it's good, and I think that it would get interesting reading more of it. And I'll come back at the end of the video and kind of tell y'all what my thought is as far as what I'm going to do with the rest of the books now that I've completed them. Then we've got Nocturne. This one opens up with a bang. Our main character is trying to drive and get through this storm. She's got people that are depending on her. She's kind of a workaholic, and she knows that her desk has been piling up with work for her to get back to. And she winds up getting into the snowstorm, and an avalanche comes down. She avoids the avalanche, but then she's trying to speed so that she can get where she needs to go, and her car slides and she slams on the brake, which is not what you're supposed to do in the snow. So her car spins out and winds up crashing into a tree. The tree falls over the car, busts most of the windshield. It's freezing outside. She's like in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, she is bleeding from her head. So she's like, great, I need to find a way to get out of this car and to safety, or I'm going to freeze to death. So that's literally chapter 1. Really opens up with a bang. So I am going to put that one here, because this one has some emotional elements that I really like. And this one was only 2 pages long. So I'm not really invested in any of the characters yet. Whereas this one, like, I'm rooting for the girl. Then last, but certainly not least, we have the girl in red. I already know exactly where I'm going to be placing this one. The girl is cooking some stew out in the middle of the woods. This is like a dystopian horror Little Red Riding Hood retelling. So her name is Red, and she is going to her grandmother's house. There's been some sort of virus that's been spread that I think turns people into animals, but also the humans that have survived turning into this monstrous thing are very corrupt. So they have no shame about robbing you, killing you for food, or taking advantage of you in the biggest way that they can, if you know what I'm saying. She's like, I know I'm a girl, and she's also an amputee, and she's like, whenever these men find me in the woods alone, they think that I am an easy target. So she's sitting there eating she's cooking her stew. She's got a bloody axe beside her because she had to kill a guy, because there was like 3 people who had ganged up on her, so she wound up killing one of them to like survive. And here comes this guy that she calls a coyote, because she just knows, just by seeing him, he's gonna be one of these men that thinks that he can get in her good graces and like have a good meal with her and then try to have a good time, if you know what I'm saying. And she's like, heck no. So she sits there. He's trying to talk to her. He sits up by her with her fire that she has. And she eats the boiling hot soup in front of him because she knows she's going to piss him off, because he thinks that she's going to offer him the soup. And she's like, no, this is my soup. And he's like, you know, where I come from, it's polite that if you have food and other people don't, that you share. And she's like, oh, really? And then he gets mad. So he pulls out his gun on her and then comes up to her and is like, give me all your food. Because she has like food in her backpack and stuff. Like, give me all your supplies or I'll shoot you. So she stands up, and he's not expecting that, because she's just thinking, oh, you know, you're an amputee with a prosthetic leg. You're not going to be able to react fast. And he suspected that she would go for her axe, so he went to the other side where she didn't have a weapon, because he was like, she's going to be slow moving. She's not going to be able to take care of herself. So what does she do? She grabs the hot pan that she just boiled stuff with that still has some of the soup in it. And she like hits him with it. And the boiling soup like gets in his eye and it starts literally melting his skin. So he drops his gun. So then she takes his gun and she also takes her axe and she She strikes him in the stomach with the axe so that he's bleeding out. And he also said that there was other guys that were soldiers who were in the area, so he had gotten split off from them. So she knows there's other people around, so she's got to move. So as he's laying there dying from the wound, she packs up her little tent, all of her stuff in her backpack, and she starts trekking it. And again, it's like the middle of winter. It's snowing everywhere. She's just trying to get to her grandmother's house. So she crosses some water so that she can lose the trail because she thinks that these soldiers may have dogs, because there are soldiers who go through and they're like patrolling the area and stuff, and they will use dogs to seek out the infected. But they also take advantage when they come across someone that has goods because they're stuck out there. So they're like, we'll just get whatever we want. And so she's like, I gotta lose her trail. Then she comes upon a cabin and it's dusty. So she knows no one's been there in a while. So she finds a way to get in and it's stocked with food. So now she's going to be able to take off her prosthetic leg, lotion up her leg, and rest for the night, make herself some spaghetti, which is the sort of thing she can't really make out in the wild. And then she's going to take all of the just add water foods that this person had at the house, put it in her bag, and then again continue on to go to her grandmother's. She's worried that there could be like a serial killer out. She's always analyzing every single decision that she makes because she understands that it could be life or death, but also hesitating to make decisions too much could also put you at risk, which is kind of the same scenario that the nocturne person was going through when it came to, do I stay in the car or am I going to get out? So, yeah, I really, really like this. But she is also, it already brought up in that chapter as well, that she is biracial. And people, even in this day, where everything's gone to crap and there is no longer like regular society, everyone's just kind of every man for themselves, they still look at her and like wonder where she's from and like what she's mixed with, that sort of thing. And it just baffles her that people care so much, and also that people underestimate how much she can do as an amputee, because she's been an amputee since she was 8 years old. So she's spent more time alive, like, using a prosthetic than she has without it. So she's like, I understand that other people look at me and they might feel sympathy or they feel like I can't do stuff. But honestly, I'm not that limited. Most things she can do. She doesn't have like an expensive prosthetic, so it does hinder her traveling a little bit. And she's limited to the amount of time that she can travel. So this really helps with like the thriller aspect of this, because she has to take more rest breaks. She cannot just go on, because if she gets a bad infection in that leg, then she always has the fear that she would have to get more amputated, and it could just cause a lot of issues. So for all of those reasons, this one goes in the number 1 slot. So hello, I'm back again. Now, when I originally started this video, what I was going to do was have a 3 strikes you're out elimination, but that was way too many strikes. I would have had to have read pretty much the whole book of all of them. And there was 8 books, and they're due back in the library. Today's the 17th. I think they're due back tomorrow. So there's no way that I can read all these books or even read one, just because my reading's been very slow this month. I've only finished 3 books. So I have not been doing great in the reading department comparatively to what I normally do. But that's fine. I'm just taking it easy. And so what I think I'm going to do now at this point is I'm going to write down the titles of the ones that I am wanting to continue, and maybe put them in a bottle. I saved some glass bottles that I had from a while back, and I think I will put those titles in the glass bottle. What I might also do is at the end of these experimental videos, if there's a certain book that I said sounded good and that I was interested in it, and you also want to know my thoughts on it, then I can add that to the jar. Now, next year, I know one of my goals is to be very deliberate with making sure I'm reading at least one book that's written by a person of color about a person of color every month. It will be fiction because I don't really like nonfiction books, so it'll be fiction. And some of them will just be like pure joy on the character, and some of them are going to deal with the oppressive nature of being a person of color sometimes, whether it's the current version of that or whether it is the more historical version, like with Conjure Women. So I think out of this pile, as far as the ones that could be part of that project, to make sure I'm being very deliberate and reading at least one book that's like own voices, that I would put a couple of these in that pile. So I am interested in knowing more about this, and it does have Japanese American representation. I definitely want to read more about this. This has a biracial character who is also an amputee, so she has a prosthetic leg, and it's just so amazing. Out of all the books, this would have been the one that I just had to devour, but again, I ran out of time. So this would definitely be one. I don't even know that I'll wait till the end of the year to read it, because it was so good. Just that one chapter hooked me so much. This one I don't think would be part of the project because I don't know that there's any diversity in here whatsoever yet, because I've only read one chapter and it hasn't like described what the character looks like or anything like that, so I don't have anything to go off of. And I also don't know anything about the author. So, best-selling author of 3 critically acclaimed novels, Dracula, My Love. We're reading Dracula next month for my I Read Dead People book club, so that's kind of interesting. But anyway, but this could just be like, I could make a jar for library books that I've tried and I like them and I just want to spend time and actually read them. So this would definitely go in that pile. And then also I was really enjoying Cackle, so I think that would also be one that I would read. This was the problem, is that I was liking all of the books. I didn't think that was going to be the case based off of my last reading experiments when I pretty much hated everything that I was trying. And then the last one is The Island of Missing Trees, which one of my friends already finished reading and was doing like a buddy read talking about it. But I didn't really want to read it right now. I don't know that this was one I would get through all the way because I feel like I might get bored. But it does have diversity in it as well, not only with racial diversity, but also with religious diversity. So I think that this could be a good option. And it does have a magical realism feel, which might make it a little bit more interesting. Even though it has maybe more of a literary tone, because I just don't like literary books. I like stuff, when I say I don't like stuff that's literary, I mean I don't like character-driven books that focus a lot on the beauty of the words written. I don't care about how something is written as far as like if it's pretty. I would rather it be simple and to the point than like lyrical and something to be studied. That's what I mean by I do not like literary. If it's the type of stuff that people who give awards like, then I probably don't like it, because I am a commercial reader. I like stuff with commercial appeal and with a commercial writing style, which means 8th grade level writing, so that it's very accessible to all readers for the most part. But yeah, I might still give this one a try. I might talk to my friend more to figure out like exactly what goes on in the book and if I'm interested in it or not. But definitely these two I'm interested in, as well as, of course, The Conjure Woman. And I don't really know enough about the plot to know what's going to go on. But it's interesting so far. So yeah, the only one I don't think I'm going to be continuing out of the 8 books, I feel like I'm missing one over here somewhere, is this one. And, oh yeah, and then the The Hunting Party, I didn't care about it. I read 5 pages and I was like, I'm kind of bored. But I guess what we should do now is actually, if y'all are going to kind of like vote and tell me that you want me to read this stuff, I will read the blurb so that you get a better idea and so that I get a better idea if I'm going to like it or if it's just going to be like solid character driven the whole way through with no plot, because I don't like books that don't have plots. Anyway, this is from Conjure Woman. Mother and daughter, with a shared talent for healing and conjuring curses, are at the heart of this dazzling first novel. Conjure Women is a sweeping story that brings the world of the South before and after the Civil War vividly to life. Spanning generations, it explores the lives of 3 unforgettable women. Miss Maybelle, which is the mother of the main character, a wise healer, her precocious and observant daughter Rue, who is reluctant to follow in her mother's footsteps as a midwife, and their master's daughter, Verena. The secrets and bonds among these women come to a head at the birth of an accursed child who sets the townspeople alight with fire, spreading superstition and threatens their newly won tenuous freedom. Richly imagined, brilliantly researched, magnificently written, Conjure Women moves back and forth in time to tell the haunting story of Rue, Verena, and Maybelle, their passions and friendships, and how far they will go to save themselves and those they love. So Verena, she is like the same age as Rue, I believe. I think this is the one because, yeah, so Verena is the daughter of the master of the house. And so I think in that first chapter, I was thinking that it was another woman who had been a slave on the property that was giving birth to a white child. But now from reading this blurb, I think I got confused and it's this woman. But also, if they think this child is accursed, then maybe it was a child who had albinism because of the way that they freaked out about the vitiligo. Then to have like a fully white looking person pop out, maybe that would freak them out for some reason. So yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be a good book, and I am surprised that this is the debut novel, because that's a lot to tackle. So it has on here for the subjects: African Americans, plantation life in the southern states, race relations, southern states, and historical fiction. So I don't really know all of the specifics. I hadn't heard of this book before. There is another book by the same title, written by one of the first Black authors that was published in America. And he was very white passing. So I don't know if this took any inspiration from that for some of the perspectives or not. But I think it'll be good. So Nocturne Blurb. Oh, from international best-selling author Siri James comes a haunting and deeply romantic story of forbidden love that will steal your heart and never let go. When Nicole Whitcomb's car runs off a Colorado mountain road during a blinding snowstorm, she is saved from death by a handsome, fascinating, and enigmatic stranger. Snowbound with him for days in his beautiful home high in the Rockies, she finds herself powerfully attracted to him. But there are things about him that mystify her, filling her with apprehension. Who is Michael Tyler? Why does he live alone in such a secluded spot and guard his private life so carefully? What secret or secrets is he hiding? Nicole has secrets of her own and a past she is running from, but Michael understands her better than anyone she has ever known. Soon she is falling as deeply in love with him as he is with her, a profoundly meaningful experience that is destined to change their lives forever. As the sexual tension between them builds, however, the clues mount up. When Nicole learns her host's terrifying secret, there is nowhere for her to run but into the blizzard raging outside, and Michael may be the only one who can save her life. Yes. I am definitely thinking that this is going to be a paranormal werewolf story. There's no werewolf on the cover or anything, but that's just my thought, is that Michael is a werewolf. Yeah, so I was right that this is a paranormal story. It does not involve a werewolf. But if you look inside the Library of Congress page, it does tell you what paranormal creature it is. So you can close your eyes real quick and I will put this up to the screen if you want to know what type of paranormal romance it is. So here it is. Right there. Alright. Spoiler over. This one that I know I'm interested in. From the national best-selling author of Alice comes a post-apocalyptic, see, that's why, because post-apocalyptic is like my favorite subgenre, take on a perennial classic, Little Red Riding Hood, about a woman who isn't as defenseless as she seems. It's not safe for anyone alone in the woods. There are predators that come out at night, critters and coyotes, snakes and wolves. But the woman in the red jacket has no choice, not since the crisis came, decimated the population, and sent those who survived fleeing into quarantine camps that serve as breeding grounds for death, destruction, and disease. She is just a woman trying not to get killed in a world that doesn't look anything like the one she grew up in. The one that was perfectly sane and normal and boring until 3 months ago. There are worse threats in the woods than the things that stalk their prey at night. Sometimes there are men with dark desires, weak wills, and evil intents, men in uniform, with classified information, deadly secrets, and unforgiving orders. And sometimes, just sometimes, there's something worse than all the horrible people and vicious beast combined. Red doesn't like to think of herself as a killer, but she isn't about to let herself get eaten up just because she is a woman alone in the woods. So yeah, this is definitely my number one out of all of them. And then we've got this one. And this was like a newer release. Yeah. The acclaimed author of the celebrated literary horror novels The Hunger and the Deep turns her psychological and supernatural eye on the horrors of the Japanese-American internment camp in World War II. 1944. As World War II rages on, the threats that has come to the home front. In a remote corner of Idaho, Miko Briggs and her daughter, Aiko, are desperate to return home. Following Miko's husband's enlistment as an Air Force pilot in the Pacific months prior, Miko and Aiko were taken from their home in Seattle and sent to one of the internment camps in the Midwest. It didn't matter that Aiko was American-born. They were Japanese and therefore considered a threat by the American government. Mother and daughter attempt to hold on to elements of their old life in the camp when a mysterious disease begins to spread among those interned. What starts as a minor cold quickly becomes spontaneous fits of violence and aggression, even death. And when a disconcerting team of doctors arrives, nearly more threatening than the illness itself, Miko and her daughter team up with a newspaper reporter and widowed missionary to investigate, and it becomes clear to them that something more sinister is afoot. A demon from the stories of Miko's childhood, hell-bent on infiltrating their already strange world, inspired by the Japanese yokai and the Jorogumo spider demon. The fervor explores the horrors of the supernatural beyond just the threat of the occult. With a keen and prescient eye, Katsu crafts a terrifying story about the dangers of demonization and mysterious contagion, and the search to stop its spread before it's too late. A sharp account of too recent history. It's a deep excavation of how we decide who gets to be human when being human matters most. She worked for the CIA? I was like, what? Okay, so this is even more interesting. So about the author. The author of 6 novels, most recently Red Widow, The Deep, and The Hunger. Prior to the publication of her first novel, she had a 35-year career as a senior intelligence analyst for several U.S. agencies, including the CIA and NSA, as well as RAND. Katsu is a graduate of the Master's Writing Program at the Johns Hopkins University and received her bachelor's degree from Brandeis University. She lives outside of Washington, D.C. with her husband. So this person is really smart. All right. Then we've got The Island of the Missing Trees. A rich, magical new novel on belonging and identity, love and trauma, nature and renewal. From the Booker shortlisted author of 10 minutes, 38 seconds in this strange world. Two teenagers, a Greek Cypriot, I've never heard of this, and the Turkish Cypriot meet at a taverna on the island they both call home. In the taverna, hidden beneath garlands of garlic, chili peppers, and creeping honeysuckle, Costas and Daphne grow in their forbidden love for each other. A fig tree stretches through a cavity in the roof, and this tree bears witness to their hushed, happy meetings, and eventually to their silent and repetitious departures. The tree is where, when war breaks out, when the capital is reduced to ashes and rubble, and when the teenagers vanish, decades later, Costas returns. He is a botanist looking for native species, but really he's searching for lost love. Years later, a ficus corica grows in the back garden of a house in London where Ada Kazanskis lives. This tree is her only connection to an island she'd never visited, her only connection to her family's troubled history and her complex identity as she seeks to untangle years of secrets to find her place in the world. A moving, beautifully written, and delicately constructed story of love, division, transcendence, history, and eco-consciousness. The Island of Missing Trees is Elif Shafak's best work yet. And then we have this one, which I found out this is actually book 2 in a series, which is probably why I was so confused reading book 1. Reading chapter 1. But it says, finding your feet in a new job isn't always easy. That goes double for Josie Way, who's settling in as Wilfred, Oregon's new librarian, and has just discovered she's a witch. But will her fledgling powers be enough to save her from a spell of murder? While Josie develops her witchcraft with the help of letters left by her grandmother, there are other changes happening in her new hometown. A retreat center is being built at the old mill site, and rumor has it that the location is cursed. That piques Josie's interest almost as much as Sam Wilfred, handsome FBI agent and descendant of the town's founder. When Sam's soon-to-be ex-wife Fiona goes missing at the same time that a bloodied weapon is found, Josie enlists her witchy insight and her cat familiar to clear Sam's name, but then the mill's project architect is found dead, and it's clear that someone has been drawing up a vicious plan. Now Josie will have to divine her way out of a fatal mischief before this deadly trouble turns double. So that's what that is. And then we had one more book over there, so I gotta go grab it. Last up, we have The Hunting Party by Lucy Foyley. All of them are friends. One of them is a killer. During the languid days of the Christmas break, a group of 30-something friends from Oxford meet to welcome in the New Year together, a tradition they began as students 10 years ago. For this vacation, they've chosen an idyllic and isolated estate in the Scottish Highlands, the perfect place to get away and unwind by themselves. They arrive on December 30th, just before a historic blizzard seals the lodge off from the outside world. 2 days later, on New Year's Day, one of them is dead. The trip began innocently enough, admiration of the stunning, if foreboding scenery, champagne in front of a crackling fire, and reminiscences about the past. But after a decade, the weight of secret resentments has grown too heavy for the group's tenuous nostalgia to bear. Amid the boisterous revelry of New Year's Eve, the cord holding them together snaps. Now one of them is dead, and another one of them did it. Keep your friends close, the old adage goes. But just how close is too close? So, that's this one. And I got a little bored right away. But, yeah, those are all of the books. So let me know which ones you want me to actually finish and do full reviews for, because if y'all are interested and I liked it enough to continue, I will like add the book title to the jar and we'll do some of y'all's picks. But that's all I have for you for this video. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!